So I just want to welcome everyone to Find Your Place in the Creative Economy session for the 2020 HBCU Week Virtual Conference. My name is Ayanna Hudson, and I'm the Arts Education Director for the National Endowment for the Arts. We are so thrilled you have joined us for this session. You will first watch a 10-minute video, which includes a welcome to our session from the heads of the federal cultural agencies, and a presentation providing an overview of the creative economy, followed by a live presentation of the interactive Creative Economy State Profile Dashboard. Both presenters will join us for a brief Q&A. Following the Q&A, I will turn it over to Susan Glimcher with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, who will facilitate a robust discussion on jobs and internships in the cultural sector. Before we get started, please make sure your microphone is muted. Please set the Zoom to speaker mode. Just want to let you know that this session is being recorded for potential future use. And we also welcome and really encourage your questions, so please type them into the chat and we'll address as many questions as we can. For more information, make sure you download the handout on resources to understand the economic impact of the arts, humanities, museums, and libraries. It has been posted in the handout section in the Wahoo under this session. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Marvin, you can play the video now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The host has to enable the screen share.
Just one moment.
Welcome, and thank you for joining the Arts, Humanities, and History cluster of the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. We are made up of the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Institute for Museum and Library Services, the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and the Department of Education.
During this session of Dream It, Be It, Competitiveness via Federal Arts, Humanities, and History Opportunities and Partnerships, you will get to know the federal agencies we represent and the programs and assistance we can offer your students and your HBCUs. You will see that there is potential for opportunities for your students at our agencies and in these career fields through jobs, internships, and mentorships. We hope that these sessions will lead to building a strong partnership with your schools.
Each one of our agencies has been working with HBCUs to be sure that they're able to take full advantage of the grants and other opportunities we provide. Whatever the size of your institution, small, medium, or large, we want you to succeed with our help. Today, you'll hear about opportunities for us to help you accomplish your mission and about the many benefits of collaboration with our agencies.
We strive for inclusivity and want to engage your students in arts, education, humanities, and historic preservation. Maybe it's not something they've ever considered before. Perhaps it will open their eyes to a whole new world of possibilities, or perhaps it's their lifelong dream.
Finally, we are here for you. Over the next hour, you will meet the people who work on our programs, who can get you answers and will be resources for you in the future. We are proud of the work we do and proud of these fine professionals who are conducting this session. They will help ensure your HBCU and students can dream it and be it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunil Iyengar, Director of Research and Analysis at the National Endowment for the Arts. The Arts Endowment is the nation's premier federal arts agency supporting creativity in the arts, including arts education, through projects all around the country, in every state, in communities large and small, urban and rural. The office I'm privileged to lead supports research about the value and impact of the arts for individuals, communities, and society at large. Today, I'll explain some of what we know about the economic impact of arts and cultural industries in the United States, and what the data suggests about growth opportunities within the sector, and by extension, which jobs and skills increasingly might be in demand. Now, a word about this term, creative sector. I've used it here in the slide, and my colleague Ryan Stubbs will be referring to it in the next presentation. But for the remainder of this talk, I'll be referring specifically to arts and cultural industries and jobs, which constitute a major part of the US creative sector as we know it. So when we talk about the economic impact of arts and culture in this country, perhaps the most readily understandable way of conveying it is through gross domestic product. That is to say, arts and cultural production in this country, the economic output of arts and cultural industries totals $878 billion, or 4.5% of US GDP. Those industries have 5 million workers on payroll. We have these stats because of a federal partnership between the Arts Endowment and the Bureau of Economic Analysis at the US Department of Commerce. The BEA is known effectively as the nation's accountant. These data are the most recent we have from the year 2017. But for many years prior to that, the economic value of the arts is consistently rated above 4% of the nation's GDP. This presentation will not be discussing the effects of COVID-19 on the economy. As you may imagine, the verdict is still out on how these numbers may have shifted for 2020. So what is 4% or 878 billion? To give you an idea of the scale of arts and culture's contribution to the economy, here is this value ranged beside the economic contributions of some other industries in the US. Arts and culture's share of the GDP is less than for some other much larger sectors like healthcare and retail sales, but it's larger than for construction, transportation, travel and tourism, utilities, mining, and agriculture, to list some others. What do we mean by arts and cultural industries, you may ask? Different economic models have different ways for accounting for this sector, but one I like to show is by the Australian economist David Throsby, who talks about arts and cultural industries as concentric circles, beginning with the core creative arts industries and rippling out to other supporting industries. Applying this model to the US, the Arts Endowment and the BEA have identified several core arts industries, some of which are shown here, as well as what we might consider supporting industries. This is not a comprehensive list, but it should give you a clear sense of the range of industries we often speak about when referring to arts and cultural industries at large as part of the overall creative sector. I thought it might be relevant for HBCU faculty and administrators to know what the economic footprint is for arts and education in this country, both K through 12 and in higher ed. Here we see that arts education totals about $117.4 billion of the US economy. Most of that value is provided by public investments in arts education through local, state, and federal government, and 8% from private schools. Now, you may wonder, what are the leading industries that contribute to the overall economic value from arts and culture? I've mentioned the public or government investment. Leaving aside that contribution, the top industry is broadcasting, TV and radio, which excludes sports broadcasting. This is followed by web publishing and web streaming. Stay tuned for more on this dynamic industry. And then publishing, movies, the performing arts, and arts retail. You may be interested in knowing that many of these industries, along with others, contribute to a trade surplus whereby the US exports about $30 billion more in arts and cultural goods and services than it imports from other countries. Now, it turns out that for some of these industries, specifically those in the commercial sector, we are in fact able to figure out what proportion of US business owners represent racial or ethnic minorities. So, for example, it turns out that 10% of businesses in film and video production are owned by African Americans, Hispanics, or people from other non-white racial ethnic groups. The same roughly applies to the sound recording business. For architectural services, it's about 12%, and so on. We got these data from a different data source, the National Science Foundation. Moving on to explore growth opportunities in the arts and cultural sector. There's a pretty astounding growth rate for arts and culture over time. From 1998 to 2017, after adjusting for inflation, it has grown by 70%. This compares with a 51% growth rate for the entire US economy. In the last 3 years alone, again accounting for inflation, the annual growth rate for the sector has been 4.5%, which is more than twice the growth rate for the US economy overall. That's what's shown in the two dark bars at the bottom of this slide. But look at which sectors are showing the most growth. This is what I meant by the phrase unlocking the opportunity in my cover slide. Right away you see from the top bar that web publishing and web streaming services are growing by 29%, outpacing the growth rates for other industries. Remember, this was pre-pandemic. Many analysts now believe that as more people are limited to in-home entertainments because of shelter-in-place policies and the like, this industry will continue to gain. Other high-growth industries in arts and culture are computer design systems, which refers specifically to computer integration systems supporting sound recording and film production. Then you have theatrical ticket services, followed by construction of arts and cultural facilities, and so on. Apart from thinking about the arts and cultural sector in terms of industries, I mean for-profit and non-profit organizations and their economic output, it's important to recognize, of course, the role of arts and cultural workers. Based on recent projections from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, we find that the following occupations are expected to grow over the next several years, leading up to 2028. Just as an example, I've pulled out some details about one of those high growth job categories. If you want to know more about the skills and experiences required for these professions, I'd urge you to look at the ONET database, sponsored by the Department of Labor. This is just a snapshot of the kind of information provided there. And just to go back, looking at the high growth arts and cultural workers that, according to the Department of Labor, we find film and video editors, curators, archivists, architects, post-secondary art, drama, and music teachers, which I think is really relevant to this group, which is really notable. And if you go to the next slide as I show, these are the kinds of sort of attributes of these jobs that are that one can look at if you go to this ONET online database, which is maintained or sponsored by the Department of Labor. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize artists as themselves at the core of the creative economy. Artists, as we know, are highly entrepreneurial, more than 3 times as likely as US workers in general to be self-employed, and they also have part-time jobs at a relatively high rate. They are central to what is called the gig economy. Here's a list of 11 distinct artist occupations tracked routinely by the Arts Endowment using US Census Bureau sources. We have reported out on demographic and geographic information in the past, as well as education and income levels for these workers. Beyond artists, as I've said earlier, there are a range of other cultural occupations to be aware of. Here are some of them. This slide, like the presentation as a whole, gives you a flavor of the enormous scope for creative and economic opportunities that are afforded by the arts and cultural sector in America. If you have any questions or comments, our email is below. I've also listed some web links to other resources. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
All right. Hello, everyone. I will also need the ability to share my screen when you can. If you can make me the host, I can then share. Okay.
Ryan, hold on a second.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time finding you in the list. Give me a second. There you are.
All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. So hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Stubbs, and I'm the Senior Director of Research for the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. Our organization is the professional association of the nation's 56 state and jurisdictional arts agencies. Every state, the District of Columbia, and 5 American territories all have arts agencies within their state governments. And we work in partnership with these 56 agencies to advance the arts as essential to the well-being and prosperity of individuals, communities, and families. And we often work collaboratively with the National Endowment for the Arts, and one really great collaboration has been our work in visualizing data for the Arts and Cultural Production Satellite account. These are the data that you just heard about from Sunil Iyengar. And our focus has been to take all of the wonderful data produced by the Bureau of Economic Analysis and the National Endowment for the Arts and visualize the data so that anyone can explore them and gain insights into trends and issues in every state. So today I'll be demonstrating this visualization tool, which we call the Creative Economy State Profiles. I'll talk about trends in several states where HBCUs are located and hopefully empower you to use this tool and other data to understand the opportunity and strength of the arts and culture in our economy. So before diving into the tool, I wanted to take a quick step back and talk about the relevancy of this work to educating the workforce of the future. So first, industry reports from places like the Conference Board and the World Economic Forum speak to the importance of skills such as creativity and originality to the future workforce. And these skills become even more important as industries evolve and become even more automated. And I think sometimes we think of artistic skills and creativity as intangible, but these are activities that occur in real jobs. So when looking at some of the jobs and industries that are prominently featured in the ACPSA data, we can see there's a connection between these jobs and artistic skill sets. So ONET, the tool that Sunil also just mentioned, is produced by the US Department of Labor, and it catalogs the knowledge, skills, and abilities associated with different occupations. And within these data, for example, we can see that certain occupations require fine arts knowledge, or certain occupations have knowledge, skills, and abilities that are associated with them that are also related to fine arts knowledge. So for example, we can see that certain broadcasting and design occupations require fine arts knowledge, critical thinking, thinking creatively, and originality. So I would say that from an educator's perspective, there is a connection between learning, needed skills, and real jobs in the creative economy. So now let's move on to the data and our tool. So to show you where this lives, our website is nasa-arts.org. That's NASAA-arts.org. And under the research section of our website, you can click on Creative Economy, and that will bring you to a number of useful resources. But the thing that we'll talk about today are these Creative Economy State Profiles. And so this is how you get to the tool. And we've tried our best to make this tool as intuitive as possible, but hopefully this demonstration will be informative and inspire you to use this tool yourself. So first, there's a simple way to select top-line data for every state. By scrolling over a state, you'll see figures showing the economic contribution of arts and cultural production in terms of dollars, in terms of percentage of gross state product, and total jobs. And you can select a state either by clicking on the map or by using the drop-down menu, which is located up here. Selecting a state will show you these top-line figures and all of the various aspects of the visualization, and we'll get to those as we scroll down. So now let's highlight just a few states. I have Georgia highlighted here, and we see that in Georgia, arts and cultural production accounts for $24.4 billion, 4.3% of the Georgia economy, and over 151,000 jobs. If we select Florida, we see that arts and cultural production accounts for $36.9 billion. That's 3.7% of the Florida economy and contributes over 260,000 jobs. If we select Texas, we see that arts and cultural production accounts for $46.6 billion. That's 2.8% of the Texas economy and contributes over 375,000 jobs. So these three states that I've highlighted are large in terms of their populations and their total state GDPs. So we see very large and impressive numbers. It also shows us that the arts and culture are significant parts of all state economies, and these industries go far beyond just New York and California. So furthermore, if we scroll down, we can get into more details, trends, and comparisons, which I believe tells us something of interest in every single state. So here in this next chart, we can compare the size of arts and cultural production to a number of other industries. So for example, if I select North Carolina, we see that total arts and cultural production in North Carolina is a bit smaller than retail production and construction, but larger than industries such as transportation, utilities, agriculture, education services, and mining. And if you really want to dive into these data, you can toggle between the number of creative jobs, if we select employment, and total compensation associated with those jobs, if we toggle to compensation. There are also handy tooltips to hover over key definitions. For example, if you want to know what is included within compensation figures, you can hover over this highlighted text. So the prominence of creative production will certainly vary between states. For example, I'll go to Alabama. And here we see arts and cultural production at a slightly smaller scale in terms of dollars. But if we look at these dollars, or if we look at dollars relative to the population through location quotients, we can see which state industries rise to the surface. So location quotients measure an industry's relative concentration in a state when compared to the nation. So we know that custom architectural woodwork and metalwork manufacturing in Alabama is 1.71 times above the national average. A location quotient of 1 would be equal to the national average. So anything above 1 signals an industry strength that it signals an industry strength within that particular state. And when you take a closer look, I think you'll find these strengths and an interesting story about the creative economy in every single state. So the chart that you see now and the chart below it, this bar chart and this line graph, will display the top 5 arts and cultural industries in each state. And so let's select another state, and this might seem like an obvious one, but sometimes it's good to see if the data matches our knowledge. So when we switch to Tennessee, we see an extreme strength in sound recording, as you would expect, with industry concentrations over 9 times the national average. Interestingly, over the past 10 years, we see the concentration of sound recording in Tennessee has actually increased over time. So additionally, this tool also shows overall state economic growth compared to the arts over time, over the same time period. So here we see that arts and cultural production in Tennessee increased by over 6% in 2017, while the state economy as a whole actually increased by 3% between 2016 and 2017. And if we select another state to see how these trends play out, we see a similar trend in Arkansas, where arts and culture increased by 3% and the state economy increased by 2%. Now, one last thing to show is that we can compare your state to other states. So depending on your perspective, these comparisons help with bragging rights or with goal setting.
Or today is just, I don't feel like it.
in the Mid-American region, we see that overall the concentration of arts and cultural production is slightly below national averages when looking at location quotients. So here we see Missouri is the top state in this region. But if we switch to actual figures, we see the creative economy in Texas is actually much larger. Now, if we look at a different region, let's go to the south and look at Florida. We see that Florida has the largest creative economy in terms of dollars. But again, if we switch to location quotients, which again tells us that relative concentration, we see that Georgia and Tennessee are on top of this list. So with that, I'll wrap things up. Thanks very much for your time. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Again, you can find my contact information, the Creative Economy State profiles, and much more information about state arts agencies at our website. Again, it's nasaa-arts.org. And with that, I will hand it over.
Great, thank you, Ryan, so much. And Sunil Iyengar, who we heard from in the first presentation, has joined us as well. So I just want to thank you guys both for presenting that information, very important information. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We have just a couple minutes before I turn it over to Susan. And to get us started with some questions, I'm going to direct this to both Sunil and Ryan. So one question is, how have institutions of higher education utilized the creative economy data? That's to Sunil, and then to Ryan to follow up. How have institutions of higher education utilized the creative economy state profile dashboard? So just in terms of the information that we've provided, how have you all seen it actualized in a higher education setting?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that there's a really powerful partnership here that you're seeing that may be behind the scenes here between the National Endowment for the Arts and Ryan's team, this representing the states, and that national state interplay is so important when we get down to the local level and understand things like this very question. So with regard to universities, there's a great interest right now. Many of you are aware, there's things like the Creative Campus movement. There's a great interest in understanding within the dynamic and sometimes complex, ecosystem of a college or a university. How do you quantify the arts or culture within that, in creative economy? And so we're not providing necessarily a tool guide for how to do that because it varies by university location. But what we are doing is elevating some of the occupations and some of the jobs and some of the industries that at a national level and at the state level can be taken to make up the creative economy. So what that means is we've been seeing universities look at this data and interrogate it and maybe reflect back on the ways in which their campuses or their students or their majors and fields contribute to those various industries. So you could look at any of these industries and say, what kind of job program do we have, or what kind of training are we providing for that particular job, and knowing how important it is to the economy. And that might give you more fodder for going back and advocating for the value of that particular department, or making partnerships outside the university with other sectors that are going to work with the university. So it's still in its early stages, I would say, in getting adopted by universities, because right now, as you know, it's pitched really to national and state level policymakers. But I think Ryan's done a really great job, and I've tried to as well to articulate where this sort of interfaces directly with colleges and universities.
Great, thanks, Sunil. And Ryan?
Yeah, first I would just say thanks to Sunil and his team. We feel privileged to work on these data. And I think there are a lot of layers to be explored that could perhaps be explored more. And I think, it would be great to have more work happening at colleges and universities to explore the importance of the data. But there are these connections that may not completely come up within the idea or within the data as it's presented, but certainly there's a connection between state arts agencies and many colleges and universities. Colleges and universities are grantees of state arts agencies, and as we know, many colleges and universities have very robust arts programming within them. The data that we're talking about, I think, looks at arts and cultural production, but from a very broad sense, but from the core sense of training and the artistic skills that go into what I think is the creativity of our nation, and colleges and universities are certainly a core part of administering that training so that it all kind of grows from our knowledge. So I would say that there's probably more that we could uncover there, and there's lots of interesting things to uncover, but there are these connections between federal agencies, state arts agencies, and colleges and universities.
So maybe a future application to the National Endowment for the Arts from an HBCU to really interrogate the data.
Yes, and because we have a grants program, it's
Yes.
like always plug, research grants program, and we're looking for those applications to really use the data on your own terms and create your own studies and really do analyses based on it. So consider that an open call.
Final question before I turn it over to Susan, just really to continue along the lines of what we've been saying, but how can the creative economy data, and Sunil, you started to touch on this, and the creative economy state profile dashboard impact curriculum and courses that HBCUs offer for students? Like, what's the connection between the two?
I'm sorry, who's that a question for?
Oh, just you can take it, Sunil. It was just kind of teasing out a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah,
of
the
what
courses.
you were saying.
Yeah. So this is very important, and I'm sorry to say that the data do not provide a glimpse of inequities in different subgroups populating those occupations and industries. So we do know from other data, surprisingly maybe to a lot of people, the arts sector it has a lot of inequities in it in terms of racial, ethnic distribution, and people from other backgrounds than, kind of there's gender, there's race, ethnicity, et cetera. And so what I'm trying to indicate here is in an attempt to allow everyone to participate in this economy, this creative economy, we really need to be very sensitive to training opportunities for all groups. And what I'm trying to indicate here is, but what I think you could think about, as I was trying to allude to, as you said, Ayana, was what kinds of courses could be pipeline courses to get people to those places in those industries and occupations. So what's really great is I shared some of this data. Bureau of Labor Statistics has really detailed career descriptions for all kinds of careers based on statistics and based on interviews. So they detail what's needed to get into those jobs. Now that's a very generic statement. They can't tell you how to get into those jobs, but they're telling you, these are the kinds of minimum qualifications. These are the kinds of skills that are needed. These are the kinds of competencies. And so when you look at that alongside in the economy, which ones are growing, which occupations or industries are growing, and how they're distributed across the US, if you take those two data points together, you can actually, I think, have a lot of information to think about charting a career path through courses and through thinking about co-curricular work. I'll just add one thing that we co-funded some work with the National Academy of Sciences on integrating arts and humanities with STEM in higher education. And a lot of that's another report worth looking at. It's called Branches from the Same Tree. It's a quote from Albert Einstein where he talks about science and arts coming from the same tree of knowledge. And he's basically, the report itself does talk about the need for co-curricular opportunities. So really thinking about maybe not offering a specific course in silo, but how to team teach and how to get it integrated deeply with another course. And transdisciplinary work is so important, I think, for arts and creative occupations, because oftentimes it's not just the art skill, the fine art skill or something they're using. They're combining it with business, or they're combining it with health or with civic development, engagement. So there's a lot of opportunities for co-curricular learning, I think, that the satellite account and the BLS data can maybe make plain.
Perfect. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you both so much. I'm going to turn it over to Susan now. Perfect segue for a conversation about jobs and internships.
Thank you, Ayana. Good morning, and thank you for joining us all here today. I'm Susan Glimsher. I'm the Director of Communications, Education, and Outreach with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. The ACHP is a small, independent federal agency whose sole mission is historic preservation. We oversee the Section 106 review process and we advise the President and Congress on historic preservation. Today, I'm going to introduce your panelists one by one, and each of them will give you a brief overview of their agencies and the opportunities that are available. Please note, it would be impossible to cover everything in this 30-minute session, so we have attached a handout to this session. On it are links to every agency and much more information. Please download it. Please also feel free to use the chat function at the bottom to post questions at any time during the session. We will call on you after the speaker introductions have finished. Now I would like to introduce Robert Stanton, expert member, Advisory Council on the Historic Preservation, and former director of the National Park Service. Bob?
Good morning, Susan. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The Advisory Council on Historic Preservation has 24 members, and through these members, a wide range of opportunities for students at our historically black colleges and universities may take advantage of in terms of internships, scholarships, and employment opportunities, both temporarily and career-wise. It would be impossible in this short period of time to list all of the opportunities that are available through the 24 members of the Advisory Council. But let me give you just a few examples. One of the members is the U.S. Department of the Interior, which I called home for some 40 years, including my 35 years with the National Park Service. And the National Park Service is a major employer of students who are attending or who are graduates of historically black colleges through career opportunities, internships, scholarships, grants for special studies, and what have you. And NPS offers a special program called Pathway Program, which offers federal internships and employment for current students, recent graduates with undergraduate as well as advanced degrees. As Susan mentioned in the handouts, is particular information regarding this program. Another valued member of the Advisory Council is the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which has been a national leader in preservation since 1948, I believe, and it's a nonprofit organization. And it offers a wide range of internships, scholarships, and other kinds of student development and employment opportunities. Another major member of the Advisory Council is the U.S. Department of the Agriculture, which has as one of its bureaus the U.S. Forest Service, which is a major federal agency. They too offer a wide range of employment, internships, and scholarship opportunities for students at our HBCUs. I would particularly want to mention my own agency, and I'm very proud and privileged to be an expert member of the Advisory Council, that we have a very exciting program with the National Trust for Historic Preservation and my old agency, the National Park Service, where that we actively engage students in the field of architecture in a program that we call Preservation in Practice. And this gives the students an opportunity to become personally acquainted with the opportunities in historic preservation, a career area which perhaps they had not considered in planning their ultimate career goals. Again, you will find information on all of these programs in the handout that Susan mentioned earlier. But I would like to give you a email address for the Advisory Council, and feel free to be in touch with us for additional information or questions that you may have about some of the programs represented by the 24 members of the Advisory Council. The email address is achp@achp.gov. achp@achp.gov. I again encourage you to consider employment opportunities, internships in the field of historic preservation, and again, the wide range of cultural opportunities provided by the 24 members of the Advisory Council. I might just add in closing that I am proudly a graduate of an HBCU university, Houston-Tillotson University in Austin, Texas, where I first worked seasonally with the National Park Service in 1962 that led ultimately to a 35-year career, concluding with being the 15th director of the National Park Service. So I would encourage you to seek out opportunities with these agencies in terms of internships, temporary employment, and ultimately career employment. And you will find it a very rewarding journey. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Bob. Next, please let me introduce Dr. Marvin Carr, Senior Advisor, STEM and Community Engagement with the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Marvin. Marvin, are you muted by chance?
Of course I was. We've been in COVID for 7 months and no one gets that right still.
Right.
In addition to working with STEM education and community impact at IMLS, I'm also the senior evaluation officer there. And I want to talk briefly about opportunities at IMLS, but also in the larger museum and library field, not just for direct employment, but for internship opportunities too and fellowships. And so in addition to being able to come on to IMLS for internships, specifically, if you are interested in the legal and the law and legal spaces when it comes to arts and culture, IMLS has a special internship project for law students who are interested in the arts. And so if you go to IMLS's website and click on internships, you'll be able to see just how to connect to those programs. Additionally, the Office of Museum Services invites HBCU students to apply for and to suggest internship and fellowship opportunities for them. Moreover, I think writ large in the museum and library space, there are huge opportunities for HBCU students to experience jobs in this creative economy. I specifically want to talk about the importance of the museum and library sector in creating opportunities as far as internships. So for you all who are involved, who may be studying to be librarians or information systems, IMLS runs several amazing grant programs specific to supporting HBCU faculty and university faculty and hiring and supporting pre-service librarians. And so if you would like to be interested in applying for grants and applying for that, applying for those grant dollars, is the IMLS LB21 Lower Bush 21st Century Intern Librarian Program for you to look into. You're muted.
Why does that happen to all of us?
I don't know.
Next, let me introduce Tamika Shingler. She is the Museums and Visual Arts Specialist with the National Endowment for the Arts. Tamika.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I just like everyone has said, we have the handout, but we have a few things that we can share. We have volunteer internships at our agency that anyone can apply for throughout the year. And we also have a variety of disciplines that we have at our agency, such as music, arts education, museums, visual arts, and a lot of the staff from in these divisions actually have backgrounds. It's not required all the time, but they do have interest and backgrounds into these fields, as well as the administrative aspects, which is the HR and the administrative services. So we have on our website where you can go for employment opportunities and see those employment opportunities that we have, as well as USA jobs, for the government. We also have a new position that will come out soon, part-time, for a historically Black colleges and universities initiative that we have at the endowment. And we have a position for a part-time employee to assist us with the initiative efforts and outreach efforts that we have at the Endowment for the Arts. So you can check our website for that probably in the next, let's say 6 months or so. We're not really sure, but we really looking to have support for what we're doing at the endowment with the HBCU outreach program that we have. And then as we had our previous session, you can also volunteer to be a panelist. And so for those that might have interest in learning about our grants process, we feel that being a panelist can be a #1 door to understanding our grants process. So we encourage people to volunteer to be a panelist. And as Mr. Stanton had given his background, I am a graduate of Morgan State University in vocal music and education. And then after that, I went to American University for arts management, which thus has led me to this career at the National Endowment for the Arts. So I am a proud track for creative economy. I'm a living testimony to the creative economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamika. Now I'd like to introduce Christine Miller, the Senior Program Analyst from the U.S. Department of Education. Christine.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning, everyone. So I'd like to talk to you briefly about opportunities at the Department of Education with our various internship programs. We offer internships for students and for recent graduates that are interested in seeking work experience in federal education, policy, and administration. And I really do believe that we give meaningful opportunities to our interns to try to expose them to a wide variety of work assignments. Let me just provide you with a brief overview of the types of programs we currently offer. First, we have our student volunteer trainee program. It's an 8 to 10 week program that offers volunteer opportunities to students enrolled at accredited educational institutions. And the students who participate in this program gain educational experience in their field of study or their career interest. And these opportunities are available in the fall, the winter and spring semesters, and also the summer. And they really help students develop their personal and professional skills and to make meaningful professional networks that will help them with future career endeavors. Next, we offer the Pathways program, and Mr. Stanton referred to that in his remarks as well. We have 3 tracks within Pathways. First, we have the internship program, and again, this is for people who are still in school. We have the Recent Graduates program, and that's a 1-year developmental program that promotes careers in federal government to recent graduates. Then we offer opportunities through the Presidential Management Fellows Program, or PMF. Now, PMF is a 2-year leadership development program for advanced degree candidates. So this program is geared toward individuals that are candidates for advanced degrees, including master's and PhD. I'd note that availability of internships within given offices varies through the year. Some offices require specialized knowledge, for example, in our Office of General Counsel, in order to qualify. And some, and you might say, but by and large, there are opportunities in all of the different divisions of our agency, everything from human resources management to education policy, data analytics, project management, grants management. We really have a wide variety of opportunities and needs for interns. And again, it is meaningful work. And the people that are interns with us have opportunities to network with one another. We really try to engage interns in a lot of events while they're with us, things like Brown Bag Lunch series with other Department of Ed officials. We take them on tours of DC landmarks. And sometimes there are opportunities for professional development, like resume writing workshops and other social activities that come up throughout the year. All of our internship opportunities are currently, when they're being offered, they're announced through the USA Jobs website. So if you're not familiar with that, you might want to take a look at usajobs.gov, and anyone who's interested in applying for an internship with us can search that site for Department of Education internship opportunities, and you actually apply right through that site. So I hope that's helpful to you. And if you have any questions, the general email at the department for internships is studentvolunteers@ed.gov. Thank you. Back to you, Susan.
Thanks, Christine. Remember, we would like to hear from you. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat function in the bottom of your screen about how we can help your students with career opportunities and internships. And now I'd like to introduce, last but never least, Mary Macklem, Senior Program Officer, the Division of Research Programs at the National Endowment for the Humanities. Mary.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's just a pleasure to be here today and to learn from my colleagues and to learn from those in attendance. And it's just a nice occasion. My name's Mary Macklem, and as Susan mentioned, I'm a program officer at the National Endowment for the Humanities. I currently serve in the Division of Research, and I work with the awards for faculty at HBCUs, HSIs, and TCUs programs, among other programs in the research division. On the handout for this session, you will see a few links to the NEH.gov website, where you can find out more about the agency, its mission, and also some of the projects we have supported over since we were founded. And we also have a link there for career opportunities and also professional development opportunities. So I would direct you there, and I'll talk through some of these in brief just now. Just to tell you a little bit about the National Endowment for the Humanities, we are an independent federal agency founded in 1965. NEH is one of the largest funders of humanities programs in the United States, and our mission is to serve and strengthen our nation by supporting high-quality projects and programs in the humanities, and by making the humanities available to all Americans. We've made more than 66,000 awards since our founding. So to move on to the topic of job opportunities, student internships, and professional development opportunities at NEH. My colleagues in the Office of Human Resources at NEH provided some information to me about this, and you can reach them by emailing humanresources@neh.gov. Just wanting to follow up on the career opportunities, all of our career opportunities at the agency are listed on the NEH website, but they are also posted to the usajobs.gov website, the US government's website for job opportunities. So you can look at USA Jobs. That's actually where you will put in the application, as Christine noted, also for the Department of Education. NEH is planning to announce paid internships during the summer of 2021. Again, Bob and Christine mentioned the Pathways internship program, and NEH participates in this program as well. These opportunities will be announced in the winter of 2021. Pathways program participants must be enrolled for courses during the current semester and maintain a GPA of 2.5 or higher. And students interested specifically in the grant program offices, so the offices where we administer awards and work with applicants, those students must have a major in a humanities discipline. Other internships are available also at NEH in offices not specific to our program, such as, not specific to the offices working directly with the applicants. So in communications, in the legal area, in congressional affairs. So there are opportunities across the agency for students. Some of the duties that interns would do there would depend on which office or division that they are located in, but generally assisting in day-to-day operations and developing material for briefings and reports. We have complete information on our NEH website under career opportunities, so I check there if you are interested in learning more about that. I just wanted to mention briefly a few professional development opportunities also. These would be open to faculty, K through 12 educators, and sometimes advanced graduate students also. These are funded through 2 NEH grant programs, the Seminars and Institutes program and the Institutes for Advanced Topics in the Digital Humanities. For these, participants can study a variety of humanities topics or learn new skills in digital humanities. And for most seminars and institutes, attendance is free and includes a stipend for travel and lodging when those are held in person. And you can find out more by visiting that final link on the handout. So I just wanted to thank you again for coming to our session today about the creative economy, and please be in touch if I can answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mary. Let's open it up to questions. Please feel free to post a question in the chat function below if you have one. I'll start with one for Bob. Mr. Stanton, please tell us about one of the NPS internships. For example, do you have paid internships?
Thank you very much, Susan, for that question. As I had mentioned earlier, the National Park Service, as an example, a major bureau within the Department of the Interior, has a wide range of paid internships, temporary or seasonal employment, and certainly career opportunities. One program I'd like to mention is the HBCU student intern program, and that provides a stipend between $4,000 to $5,000. And it is available to any student at a HBCU, but it's important that as they pursue the possibility of participating in the HBCU intern program, that their interests be aligned with their career goals. Could be in architecture, could be in history, archaeology, and what have you. But there are paid opportunities within the National Park Service in terms of internships. Susan, while I have the attention of my fellow panelists and particularly the listening audience, I would just like to underscore the importance as our students are considering internships, leading eventually, hopefully, to career paths, that they consider how mobile they might be, geographically speaking. Take the National Park Service as an example. It has programs in parks in each of the 50 states, plus Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Washington, D.C., American Samoa, and Guam. So I would just ask the young people to be mobile as you pursue internships as well as your career opportunities in the federal government.
Thank you, Bob. And here's a question for Tamika. Tamika, can you tell us about the work that NEA is doing currently with HBCUs as it relates to students and recent graduates?
So right now we have this opportunity that will come out for a paid part-time position that will be for someone with an interest in the in HBCUs as well as a student from HBCUs. And then we also have the other an internship program that will allow students to come in during the summer or fall or spring to gain experience in the various offices that we have within the endowment. And yeah.
Thank you, Tamika. Mary, would you give us some examples of recent professional development opportunities for faculty through NEH seminars and institute programs?
Thank you, Susan. Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So these opportunities, that would be under the professional development link at the NEH website. There's two different grant programs where applicants will come to us from a university or a center and want to provide a seminar or an institute for educators and on a particular topic. These are generally 1 to 4 week programs, and you would apply directly to the center or the institute or the institution who is offering these. In the recent past, for example, we had one that was called City of Print, New York and the Periodical Press. That was held in Brooklyn, and it was a 2-week program. And again, the participants, if you're attending this, would receive a stipend to offset the cost of housing and food and travel to there. Another one we had in the recent past was called The Making of Modern Brazil. And that was a 3-week seminar where you would read about the topic of modern Brazil and meet with other individuals in the humanities and learn more about this topic. We also have a similar structured program for digital humanities, Institutes for Advanced Topics in the Digital Humanities. And sometimes these are done virtually, sometimes these are in person. Even without COVID. One of the recent ones that was offered, for example, was further expanding digital humanities communities of practice. This was a 10-day in-person institute, actually, learning foundational digital methods and developing digital humanities research institutes. So you can find out which institutes or which opportunities might be available in a given year. They change because the applicants who come to NEH to do these seminars and institutes will change over time, of course, as well. So I'd urge you to check our website, and we have links out to any opportunities that are there. Generally, the application timeline for these professional development are in the spring. So definitely February, look into it at that point, and March.
Thank you, Mary. Tamika, thanks for answering those questions in chat. I appreciate it. One last question for Christine Miller at the Department of Education. Do the interns at the Department of Education, would you tell us a little bit about what they get to do when they are interns with you?
Sure. Thanks for that question. As I mentioned, we really do try to give interns really meaningful opportunities. They're not just doing filing and running the copy machines. I work in one of the program offices. I'm within the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I work in an office that runs 5 different competitive grant programs. And so we run competitions on an annual basis. We really involve our interns with every aspect of those competitions, from helping us recruit the peer reviewers to helping us screen the applications once they arrive at the department. Interns would be involved in helping to monitor the conversations between the peer. We have non-federal peer reviewers that come in to review the applications, and the interns get to sit in, listen to those conversations, be involved. We have them, depending on their interests and abilities, we also have different database creation and management opportunities for them, report and analysis and report writing. It just runs a wide gamut. I've even had interns help write talking points for our assistant secretary for speaking engagements. So a lot of it's what the intern wants to get out of the opportunity. We ask them to let us know their interests as well, and then we try to help them fit into where we have needs.
Thank you, Christine. To all of our participants today, I want to say thank you so much for making the time to join us. Please do remember to download the handout that is attached to this session. We are always here to help. And thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today.